Good evening, everyone, from the ASW Theater, live and in hybrid mode, while also streaming out to you. This is Director's Desk Town Hall Edition. Good evening, everyone. I see you all starting to roll in online, and we've got an audience that's slowly coming together, and our PYPx is actively taking place above us as we speak, but I'll throw the audience on the screen to show you that people are starting to trickle in, so wave everybody. That's everybody online. Say hi. They're all watching at home and wondering what we're doing here this time of night. We got lots of stuff going on upstairs, don't we? Is this chestnut on our way? I hope so. Okay, stay here though, we're all good to go. So we got a little bit of PYP X action tonight. We just had a wonderful presentation by the kids here at the theater, and then parents were dismissed. They're all upstairs now looking at all of the wonderful displays, and everybody's just really enjoying everything that they're seeing upstairs. Just a quick bit of orientation, and by the way, this is the first thing, is if you want to throw any comments into the live stream, just throw them up into either the parent Facebook face or the YouTube channel, and we can put those comments on the screen, including your questions or comments later. Please feel free to do that throughout the evening. We will also be recorded tonight, so this will go out available for everybody to watch at a later time as well. But we're just really excited tonight to be able to do this live and have some real life faces in the audience as we share a little bit about what's happening here at ASW, and of course the most important thing, this wonderful PYPx that's happening right now as we speak. And we'll get more, I'm sure, down here as people finish up with their exhibition upstairs. And we'll also have our teacher guide coming shortly, and here she is. And so I think we're going to kick off really talking about the PYPx. So I'm going to make sure that I've got you guys kind of in the vision here, and it looks like we're good. Ms. Chestnut, do you want to kick this off, though? I think you were going to do initial comments, right? Sure, yeah. So we're live online and we're ready to go here. So you want to step in here?
Sure, I'll grab over here.
And then you can either grab that one, or why don't you grab that one, and then we'll just share it with each other.
Okay, yes, so tonight we have a very exciting event. It's the end of the PYP time for these learners, and they're getting to share everything that they've experienced and learned over the years. So all the skills, the dispositions, the qualities that it takes to be an inquirer and to be a thinker. So we're so proud of our learners today and the things that they've accomplished and taking action to make a difference in our world. And today we have a few of our lovely learners here. I had the privilege of being the mentee for Annika and Sophie, and also Tanya's here today as well to share about their actions. So I will.
Do you want to first start and talk to us a little bit about the slide that you've got? Yes. Tell us about the logo here.
The logo here. This was designed by a 5th grade student, Dragon Chen, and he was inspired using the global goals as well as Compass Education, so looking at the different ways to take action. But it was interesting because he had interest in computer design and programming, and then we found out, the program that he designed it in wasn't compatible to go on a t-shirt. So then we had to figure out how to use Adobe and how to change it into a vector file. So there was a lot of learning that went behind this. And then, choosing the color blue, and so we really think it complements all of the kind of the actions that we see in the hallways today.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
Okay, so let me go to the next slide, and then you can tell me who we're going to kick off with.
Yes, okay, so here are some pictures of Annika and Sophie, and we had a bake sale happening yesterday. which was very successful. There was a lot of at-home help from parents. We had a really great turnout, and we had a large sum to donate to the cat shelter nearby, and we're going to head there next week on Tuesday together. So I will let the girls speak about what they did.
So why don't you switch places with them? Girls, come in this way and take the mic and just tell us about your project. Tell us more about it.
So we raised exactly 2,595 zloty for the cat shelter from the big sale.
Wonderful.
We also did donation boxes to another shelter called Napaluhu, and we raised a pretty good amount of donations, and that was great.
So what animals are we helping? Can you give us a sense of what these shelters do?
Kacha Azil is, well, it's not only for cats, but it only has cats.
Right now. Got
And
it.
Napaluhu, it has how many? Over 600. Over 600.
Wow.
You said in your slideshow there was 700 dogs and 200 cats.
So it obviously goes up and down a little bit, but it's definitely hundreds of animals that this donation is helping. And what kind of support does the donation go towards? What do they use it for?
So we got different kinds of donations, but we mostly got blankets and towels, especially for winter, that they can like cover the boxes to make sure that the wind doesn't make it too cold for them.
Got it. Okay. With that many animals, you've got to have individual spaces and take care of all that. What did you learn about why these shelters are needed?
Well, for Kacha Azil, I learned that it's needed because most people don't know about it.
Mm-hmm.
You can barely see it on Google Maps.
Right.
Not so far from here.
Right.
But barely people know about it, and there's lots of cats. Not as many as Napaluhu because that's a huge shelter. But Kacha Azil basically is just a house with lots of cats.
Mm-hmm.
Outside also, they have over 200 cats.
Mm-hmm.
And I think they're really important for the community, but because even though nobody knows about them,
Mm-hmm.
mostly people know about other shelters, like Napaluhu.
Is there a problem with abandoned animals? I mean, is that why these are so necessary? Is there an issue emerging with more and more animals that don't have homes?
Yes, there is an issue
Mm-hmm.
because after pandemic, lots of vet offices shut down because pets were not a priority,
Mm-hmm.
and then they never reopened some of them.
Right.
And there's also a shortage of money because animals could be getting sick.
Right.
And yeah, that's pretty much the crisis.
So there's just a lot going on right now. So your donation is certainly helping in that regard, but equally, you've kind of put out information about this, right? So you also have, I think, some information sources, right?
Yeah.
What all have you got out there?
So the most things the place where I found the most was actually even the website from Napaluhu, because it said everything that they needed and practically everything about adopting and things that you need to think about before you adopt.
Got it, okay. So I'm assuming they also take care of the animals from a veterinary point of view, they do shots and things like that, prepare the animals to go to new homes.
Yeah, they do, because they even had a center, two vet centers in there.
So maybe our message out to the audience is adopt a pet.
Yeah, exactly.
There's pets looking for homes, so come see them. Okay, so great, but now I want to toss it out to the audience and say, are there any questions for the girls? Anything else that you'd like to share with them or ask them? Jump right in. Go ahead.
What was the most difficult or challenging thing when you prepared for that stuff?
This presentation. So what was the most difficult thing you faced?
Okay, so for me it was probably finding the resources, because a lot of them were really too kid friendly, so they said things that almost every like third, fourth, and fifth grader know. Until I found the website from the shelter.
And then that gave you the information that you needed. You finally found a way to get past that easy stuff, right? How about you?
Well, it was kind of challenging because in the beginning we wanted to donate to Napaluku money, but turned out we couldn't.
Mm-hmm.
So we had to find another shelter that the school is associated with.
Got it.
And we found Cochezil, which is great because it's close to the school.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that was it.
Mm-hmm. So what she's referring to is we have a process here at the school where we vet the charities that the kids are picking. And so we provide them feedback on charities that we either already have partnerships with, that we verify that the funds are going to viable causes, or that we can look up and that we can verify that they've got a good rating or various sources for information on that. So that's great that you're able to use that process and find this destination for your wonderful fundraising.
It was also, like Annika said, a bit hard to find any sources.
Mm-hmm.
Because most of them just said like, do you know what an animal shelter is? An animal shelter is a place where cats and dogs go. There was no really specific information, but then I found it.
And then you get into the underlying things like what are the things that are in play and how do we help and what kinds of things do we need to be working on. Anything else?
What was the most fun?
Most fun. There you go.
Probably then seeing how much money and how many donations we got, because I was just so happy.
Did you get into the shelters? Did you go visit?
Yes, I visited Hajiku. She already visited Cochezil. And as Ms. Chestnut said, we are going to go.
To
Like
deliver your
as,
donation? Yeah.
School trip,
Yeah?
but not like actually on the school.
Have you ended up adopting anything?
No.
Not yet?
But I'm going to.
You got them. You're thinking about it. I can see that in your eye. Mom says no.
We adopted already a cat and a dog.
Okay, we've already done our bit. Got it. All right, well, girls, thank you so much for sharing this with us, and it's really a wonderful project. Good job.
Thank you. Thank you.
Should I just move on to the next slide?
I think so.
So this is Tanya. So Tanya, you got the microphone. Tell us about finding your artistic style.
Hi, so my topic was about developing art styles, and for taking action, I was, first of all, I was drawing. As you can see on the screen, here are some of my drawings that I did.
Mm-hmm.
I used a technique where I found inspiration and things that inspire me and added details from it to my existing art style so that I could sort of make sure that I like my art style and like the way that it develops.
Mm-hmm.
And another part of my taking action was I actually filmed a video where I taught other people how they can develop their art style using all the knowledge that I learned.
So describe for us, what is your art style?
Well, it's, I don't know, I can't really use any labels for it because, again, it's a bunch of a lot of details coming together, but when words, something that I would describe it with it is that I'm a lot happier with it now than I used to be.
So there's a lot of emotion
Yeah,
in
it's,
your art.
for me, it's less like labels and less describing the visual aesthetic of it. It's more how I feel about it that matters to me. Yeah.
Got it. So tell us more about the ones that we see in front of us here, like the two on the left. Tell us more about those.
Well, while I was developing my art style, you could say, I was practicing a lot.
Mm-hmm.
The one on the bottom left was actually one of the first times that I tried to draw a face, and I put a lot of details together, and I really liked it.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm really happy about that one.
Mm-hmm.
The one on the top of it was, I was just trying different face shapes and different hairstyles and sort of just experimenting with it a lot.
So I see a lot of real life here. So this is faces, people. You know.
Yeah, I was more focusing when I see it developing my artistic style, I was more focusing on drawing people, specifically drawing like girls, because I think throughout my life, it's just been easier for me. I don't know, it's just an automatic thing. But the next step for me is to try to draw boys.
Kind of move across different genres, but
Yeah.
still real life. It sounds like you're really focused on people.
Yeah.
And people and the different ways of presenting them. Is there an artist that has inspired you?
Well, there's an artist that I really like. His name is Van Gogh. I think a lot of people know about him.
Obviously.
Of course, his works look nothing like mine at all.
I got you.
But he really inspired me by the colors, and it inspired me more the aspect of his art style, and like it helped me persevere with my art. But the people that I took real inspiration from, I was really just scouring the internet for photos and sketches that I liked and taking inspiration from those. So I mostly took inspiration from other fellow artists on the internet that I could find.
Great. So parroting off the earlier question, just to give you a shot at this too, what was the toughest part? What was the toughest hurdle?
Well, the toughest part was probably realizing that not every single of my drawings would be perfect, and that's okay, because art has a lot to do with mental health, and I think that it can get really stressful. It can be and a stressful reliever and the cause of stress. So for me, it was, it's a journey realizing that your art is valid. Whatever it is, it's valid, and every art style is okay. So, and of course, another thing was not comparing myself to others. It's also really hard.
Yeah.
I feel like everyone does it in every aspect. People often compare themselves to others, but and for me, that was an art, and I realized that it's very unhealthy to myself, and that it's very toxic. So this journey was not only about developing my art style, it was also learning more about art, which I love to do. It's my passion. And also just like working on my self-love a little bit.
I love that. What about the most fun part?
The most fun part was probably the research. As I said, the only thing I like more than making art is learning about art, learning about colors, learning about like everything. I loved it. I love to do it.
Okay, I think we're seeing a budding DP higher level art student here. Okay, so stick with us. In about 6 years, you'll see this come to fruition. Any questions from the audience for our artists? Go ahead.
So as a fellow artist, I also like drawing. Portraits is one of the things that I like drawing the most. However, whenever I draw and whenever I'm drawing something new, I also like to use a different medium such as chalk or charcoal. And I find that it helps to explore the different ways that you like to draw. And there's some of them are a little bit more abstract. Have you, as an artist and somebody who is finding their style, have you settled on, or have you found that you like pencil better, or have you tried charcoal, or how has that grown?
Well, throughout this, I really like painting as well. Van Gogh also inspires me.
I was going to say, you have to be doing watercolor after somewhere.
Well,
and maybe a little bit of oil.
Yeah, I like oil a lot.
Okay.
I used to oil paint all the time when I was at home in Kiev. Here I stopped doing it, but it's still a really big part of me. But throughout this unit, I tried using charcoal, and for me as well, exploring a new medium really helps me get creative and not really care about what I'm drawing, because to myself I think like, oh, this is just an experiment, this is just for fun. And actually these drawings aren't on the slide here, but I was experimenting with shading, and I was experimenting with charcoal. That was also a really fun part of it, because I just got to let my creativity flow, and I didn't get to really worry about whether it looked good or not, because I was just thinking to myself, like, this is just an experiment, it doesn't matter. But also, I think that mindset should be used in all drawings and all art. Because again, every single drawing is kind of like an experiment. As soon as you pick up a pencil or some medium and you put down a canvas or somewhere where you create, that's also an experiment. So, yeah.
I have to tell you, Tanya, I don't know if you know this, but my daughter, Erin, is just about to graduate from Marist College in Florence, Italy. And her entire program has been about art history, art conservation, and herself finding her artistic style. So I have a real connection and affinity to what you're going through right now. You're setting a wonderful stage for, I think, what you'll be able to build on as you continue to find your style. I don't think you found it yet, and I think it's a work in progress, and I think that's okay.
Yeah, this topic is, it's not just going to stop at PYPx, it's going to continue throughout my whole life, and it has been continuing throughout my whole life before the PYPx. So this is, it's an ongoing project, and yeah.
Good. Anything else for Tanya? Let's give her a round of applause. Ms. Chestnut, why don't you come back up and join me for a minute? Thank you, Tanya. I don't know if you want to go back up and keep presenting, feel free to do that, so it's up to you.
Thanks so much for the opportunity.
Thank you. So what we're hearing here, and obviously what we're seeing, is how this is a really significant experience for these kids. What do you think, as you look across all of the exhibits, what's the percentage of how many have that level of experience? I would guess it's probably in the 90+% level, if not even higher.
Yeah, I think that we spent a long time at the beginning really identifying what their passions are, what their skill sets already are, and what they hope to accomplish through this process. And we also want to say this is just a moment in time, and then it's going to continue on for the rest of their life. Hopefully it's going to make an impact in the way that they view the world and the way they view themselves. So yeah, I would say probably everyone of the students up there will say that they chose something that was relevant and meaningful to them, and it wasn't dictated by anyone else, it was chosen by them, and they own it. So that's what is so beautiful in the PYP, is that kids can really inquire into their own interests and passions.
Absolutely. And just so everyone understands, and let's put it in context, is we have effectively 3 key waypoints between the beginning of elementary and graduation from high school. We have the PYPx, which denotes kind of the culmination, capstone, if you will, of the PYP. In the MYP, and earlier this year, you hopefully got a chance to see Personal Project, and how that was also a development of multiple years, a little bit higher level of rigor. And they just got their scores recently, and everything pulled together after reflection sessions and meeting with committees and getting insight and improving their projects. There's a significant writing component to it, but it's also an action component. So it's very much like PYPx in that it turns agency into action. And then up at the top level, we've got a mixture of things, but we've got extended essay, which is a deeply written paper that again is supposed to connect to kids and their studies, but also make that connection to something real world, and really working almost at a professional level. And then paired with that is CAS, and that's the community, the action, the service, the things that the kids do to wrap around that to turn that into fruition and demonstrate how they are becoming active citizens. So hopefully what you see through this and through those other actions is how our overall IB program takes kids through these stages and through a comprehensive understanding of how all of these things link together into transdisciplinary ways of looking at how we learn. And that's all part of inquiry and part of the way it constructs together. Any questions for Charlotte or I while we're here about PYP and PYPx? Anything that you want to know that you haven't heard yet? Brilliant. Charlotte,
Okay,
thank
great.
you so much.
Thank you for joining us tonight.
Okay, all good. Thank you. Fumble with microphone. Not used to that. Okay. So One other thing I want to do tonight before we get to Q&A, and we'll do that, there's actually two things I want to put on the table. One was in e-notes tonight, so I want to put this out also on Town Hall. We have a development that has been planned next to the school that we have serious concerns about. The property, and for those of you who've been here a long time, there's been lots of things planned on this property, but nothing has yet come to fruition. Originally, there was going to be a mall developed there, and there was some benefits, but also some concerns about that. But the latest information that we've received within the last few months is that there's a planned equestrian center. But we have serious concerns about the plans for this center because they're projecting 50-plus horses on what we consider to be an inadequately sized piece of property. And the end result of that is there's a potential for significant environmental impact on our back gate. We're not the only ones concerned about this. We've also banded together with the residents of the area, particularly those in Constancia here. We've got a strong partnership with them. We're right now in the process of asking you to sign petitions. They'll be available starting tomorrow. All we want at this point is to be recognized as a party to the matter, because there's actually not a requirement, even though we're directly adjacent, there's not a requirement to include us in the process at the Starosta level unless we're recognized as a party to the matter. The school has done and is doing due diligence on this. We have an environmental impact study that we're funding that will be completed shortly. The petitions need to be put in place. We have meetings with the mayor of the city of Constantia, but this is going to rise above that to more of the PSHNO area in terms of approval. We don't consider it to be a legitimate use of the land as per the current zoning requirements of the area, which would suggest, based on other issues that have emerged, I don't know if any of you noticed, I was told about this today, a lot of the advertisement up on Varsovska, the main road, have started to disappear. That was on the basis of community action to change that this was meant to be a more suburban environment and not have a large amount of advertisement on the streets. So if you haven't noticed, take a look out there. All of the billboards are starting to disappear. And so that's a part of community action. What I would say to you is we're going to do the same thing relative to this neighbor project, because we think it's an inappropriate use and it will have serious impacts for us in terms of environmental impacts for the school. And we want to create an environment that maintains health and safety for kids, so we need to be opposed to this. We already have hundreds of signatures from the residents of Constancia. What we need now is the broader community to also join us. We have many parents, obviously, that live in close proximity, but not necessarily in Constancia. We need you to join in with us. And all of these petitions will be delivered to the government agencies involved in making the final decision on this. So I just want to reach out to you and say, please join us in this. And that all starts tomorrow. And if you want to see the text, which has been worked on by 2 sets of lawyers, it's attached to e-notes tonight. So you can click on the link and you can read both Polish and English text of the petition so that you can read it in advance before you are approached tomorrow and in the coming days. We have a deadline of May 15th. So by May 15th, we need to gather all of our signatures. So I'm hoping also out in the audience that those of you who are either watching now or will watch in the coming days, please look for our volunteers who will be out in pickup and drop off. And if you miss them, come into the front entrance and to the reception desk, and Beata will have the petition available there throughout the day. Okay? So that's one issue that's in front of us. The other is a celebratory event that's on the docket very soon. So Mike Teskey, Director of Development, is here to join me and talk about what we've got on tap for June 3rd. Reserve the date, because there's a lot happening.
Indeed, John. So June 3rd is on the calendar as Spring Fair, but it's really Spring Fair Plus. So in addition to the good work that the folks at PPO who are so hardworking, so energetic, so effective at what they do, they're allowing us to partner with them to tag on some additional elements. And they're really important, really great events to put on your calendar. First of all, beyond the food vendors and inflatable slides for families and student performances that you would expect to be at the spring fair, got to take off my glasses. We are going to have a really important event. That's our Building the Future groundbreaking. So oftentimes groundbreakings are a couple of notable people, maybe with shovels. This is going to be a participatory community event. If you've got 2 hands, you're going to get a little shovel and you're going to help us break ground on this event. So it's going to be fun for everyone who's there. Okay? It's also going to be a time for us to say to our good friends at PSI, with whom we've shared space for the past year, farewell until we meet again, right?
Yep.
And that's going to be an important part of what we're doing. The Board of Trustees is going to be having some programming that allows us to see what they've been up to this year and interact with you and learn about all the accomplishments they've made this year. So there'll be a reception programmatic element to the fair that includes that. We will have a big celebratory ASW for Ukraine thank you for all the volunteers, all the donors that have made an incredible impact this past year. The need still continues, however, but we're still going to say thank you to the, 700 some donors and a couple hundred some volunteers that have made a difference in people's lives through our ASW for Ukraine efforts. By the way, like I said, they're still going on. This last weekend in the Public Center, there were over 200 people in the queue for the foods that we provide. And I should use this opportunity, thanks to the efforts of Rotary, we just received a lovely donation today of $25,000. And that's going to go to additional food and items that will be delivered really soon and given out to people here as well as across the border in Ukraine. So the need is still there, and thankfully there are good people like Rotary that are pitching in and still helping meet those needs. So that's going to be one element. And the final element of the Spring Fair Plus will be a capstone event in the evening where we're inviting alumni back to have a barbecue and reunion party for alumni. And at international schools, alumni aren't just graduates. Alumni are all former students, former parents, former staff. So we're bringing back a bunch of the former faculty. We're inviting back former parents. It'll be a really celebratory barbecue, and it will kick off kind of a year of really wonderful programming. So we hope all of you here in the audience and all of you on the interwebs can join us for that.
We should quickly mention the alumni was inspired in many ways by recent alumni events where they said it would be so great if we could come back and really be on campus and really experience it. And when we got the feedback, it was like, think about June. Think about June and whether that's a time we can come back. We'll also quickly add that while this is bringing this year to a close, it's also going to have a hint of getting ready for next year. Next year is 70th birthday. And so we'll be kicking off a lot of things next year, kind of planting seeds at this June 3rd event, but we're going to kick off a lot of stuff into next year that will have a culminating event of our gala in November 11th, save the date, and throughout the year. So it's not just going to be that November 11th, but really all of our activities that we would traditionally do will have a 70th birthday flair to them, because that's the way we want next year to go. So Mike's going to help us orchestrate that along with his team. Shout out to communications, to all of our people that are working together on this with EFA and Service Learning and the amazing work. I should mention that donation has got us in a hair's breadth of moving over 400,000 US that has been donated for this effort that has gone straight through and straight out to support refugees. And that doesn't even include the in-kind donations that we're now seeing from corporations that we'll be announcing shortly, that are sending us pallets of food, pallets of goods, pallets of things that we can distribute, which is why people keep coming to Lipová Centers, because we continue to have the wonderful support of the community to keep it going. So thank you all for that. Any questions for Mike before I let him go? Any questions about what's coming up? Okay, well, thank
There you
you.
go.
Yes. I put Building the Future on the screen, so just reminding you that the website's up. If you go to aswarsaw.org, one click through to see all of our plans. We'll be regularly updating that. We do break ground this summer, so the project kicks off in earnest as soon as we get out of school. And you'll see the trucks roll in, so we can get a big chunk of it done before school starts. I should hasten to mention, as the website talks about, we'll be doing work through the school year. But it'll be at times that will be minimal disruption, and it'll be primarily in the afternoons, evenings, and weekends. It will have us moving around occasionally and creating space for it. We're learning a lot as we do the prototype projects so that we can do it efficiently, quickly, and get people back into their spaces. Very similar to how we're doing the windows right now. So those windows are all being done in evenings and weekends, and we're making good progress at replacing that critical infrastructure element of the school and getting us set for the classroom renovation. The first one of which was completed during the May break, and we now have nailed the time frame that we need to do a classroom. And every classroom in the school will be renovated with additional airflow, individual spaces with air circulation and heat and cooling integrated into the windows, and new lighting, new surfaces, and an update basically of the entire space, and then paint on the walls. So we've got it down to a science, and we're going to do it as efficiently as we possibly can. So please feel free to reach out if you ever have questions about that. I'm always available. Just shoot an email to me. I think that's it for things I had tonight. So actually, let me take this off the screen. We'll go to the split here. Any questions tonight or anything that I can help answer? Please shout it out.
Yeah, John, just a question on the Equestrian Center.
Yes.
For the petition, will they accept like Adobe signed PDFs, email, or do they have to be wet signatures on paper?
We're going for wet signatures on paper at this point. We have decided not to try to do a website for GDPR purposes. So we have to have you physically sign the petition. That's why we're going to have volunteers out in the pickup area so that you can do that for us. So while I wanted to put one up on the e-notes tonight so that people could read it in advance, it's not one we can Adobe sign or submit. We do have to have the wet signatures. We will be able to copy them, we just won't be able to use electronic signatures. As you may or may not know, electronic signatures in Poland are still an area of debate. And so you have to have the very special e-certification token for them to be valid. So we're not going to go there. Thanks. What other questions do you have? This or any other topic, please.
I have a question.
Shoot.
My name is Shannon Ellis. I'm one of the community liaison
Yeah.
representatives for the U.S. Embassy.
Sure.
As a parent to students that are here at ASW and the liaison representative for the embassy, we've had an uptick of families concerned with the amount of injuries that have been sustained at the Opal Playground.
Mm-hmm.
I know that is one of ASW's pride and joys, and it
Right.
is very well received.
Mm-hmm.
I myself absolutely love it.
Right.
However, because of the amount of utilization that it gets, there has been an uptick in injuries. What are you doing?
Can I ask the question first? What is the evidence of the uptick? Because we track everything pretty closely, and there hasn't been an uptick.
Well, according to the parents that have been reaching out to us saying that their children have gotten hurt, we've had a couple of reports of kids coming home with splints on hands, and we've had some reports of kids having head injuries, not bad enough to have to go to the hospital, but they're not being reached out to by the school to say, hey, your child has been hurt at school. They're not being called, they're not being contacted, but we have been getting reports that there are more students being hurt. What are you doing to prevent those injuries here at the school?
So first of all, let me say, there is no uptick. So we monitor very closely, and every time a child comes to the health room, it's logged, and we monitor those logs. So we know that there is in fact no uptick in injuries. Now, there are injuries, as there always will be in schools. Kids do have minor injuries, sometimes more serious injuries, not directly related to Opal because they come out of different areas in the school. Sometimes it's athletics after school, sometimes it's other areas, sometimes it's a trip or a fall. Most often the visits to the health room are headaches and minor aches and pains, sometimes a cut or a scrape. But we watch the frequency very closely. And every parent, in case you didn't know, has access in PowerSchool to see whenever their child is visited. The log for each child is available to the parent. The parent sees every visit to the health room. The health room does reach out in multiple ways. They send notes with the kids back to the teacher, and that's supposed to be going with children. But we know how notes are, and sometimes they don't make it home to parents. So everything is logged, and it's rigorously logged. So I can go in on any child, and I can see their entire history of health room visits. And every parent can do that for their child. So PowerSchool is your source for checking on that information. Depending upon, they do triage, and depending upon the seriousness, they will also reach out and make phone calls. The reason I know that, that's also logged. The actual phone calls the parents logged, was the parent contacted, and usually it's related to the triage of the seriousness. So they don't call on every Band-Aid they put on.
Sure.
But what they do call on most often is head injuries where there's any concern. They also have very clear instructions, and we have very clear policy on concussions. So we don't put kids on buses, and we call parents and they have to come and pick them up whenever there's a concern that there might be a concussion. Any other injuries, obviously, because parents will need to direct care. And occasionally we have parents responding while we also have ambulances responding when we have diabetic shocks or when we have epileptic attacks, which we do have. You know, it's just part of a large, robust school that we will have medical issues on a regular basis. Now, is it a high number? No. If we look at year-on-year statistics, it's pretty consistent over the last, I would say, 5 years. And I don't see anything in the data that would suggest to me that there's any kind of an uptick in the number of injuries. And I would have a hard time labeling any kind of an uptick as Opal caused because the injuries come from so many different places, not just from Opal. They come from all of the activities of the school, PE, swimming, variety of places. So it's not an uptick, and there's no correlation, there's no seeming correlation between Opal and any injuries we might be identifying.
Sure. Well, I know that you had mentioned that the reports for injuries or whatever goes on to PowerSchool.
Yes.
There are some families that don't have access or that they haven't been granted access. They might not have activated it. I should say, not that they don't have access, but that they either didn't set it up. How do they set that up?
They contact IT support. Our coaches are ready and available to you to help you get online with PowerSchool.
Sure.
We've got a parent portal, single sign-on that gets you to PowerSchool. It's the same system they go to when they're signing up in School Buddy for after-school activities. It also provides access to the reports, so every parent was presumably accessing progress reports recently through that same interface. It also is your access to ManageBack or Seesaw. So we would want any parent who's having trouble accessing any of those systems to contact us immediately and get that worked out with IT support.
Sure. I have another question
Sure.
regarding the communication between the health units. There has been concerns brought to us to the community liaison office about the lack of communication between the health unit and the families where there's either an injury to a child or when the child has needed medicine, etc. The health unit administering medicine, when it's not specifically granted permission in the files, they are giving medicine to children that they're not supposed to. They're not contacting the family.
So that's a point of contention, and I would suggest we shouldn't talk about individual cases in an open meeting like this. So if there's concern,
cases, I'm
right.
saying that we've had multiple families reaching out to us saying
you're going to have to narrow down multiple because
okay, but I can't bring up individual cases.
Right, but have you got a number?
Do do I have a
And
number?
how many cases?
Are we needing,
I'm just trying to understand the scope of the problem because, again, I monitor very carefully ASW Health and all of the communication.
sure,
And I see a robust responsiveness to every parent communication.
sure,
I know that there are some that have a contentious interaction and they should be encouraged to follow up with me.
right,
And they should reach out to me and we resolve that. We also take it all as feedback so that we can continue to improve systems and add to them and try to make them better. So I encourage that. And that's, I guess, the answer to the question is if there's any problem with communication that anybody perceives, they should reach out to me. And I am the manager and overseer of health services as part of my scope. And so I work with the people that are there and help them to improve their practice when warranted. So happy to do that. It'll also be, just to remind everybody, it'll be part of our parent survey to answer questions about how our services are doing, all of our services.
Sure.
So the parent survey is a great place to add insight into that as well and give us feedback so that we can continue to improve those services.
and when is that coming out?
It usually comes out right after graduation, so I would expect to see it sometime around the 29th.
So then the changes or whatever would be happening would be for the following year?
Absolutely, but not necessarily. If people reach out to me, I try to intervene immediately
Sure,
and improve things or at least dig into what the circumstances of the situation were.
okay,
And I always address that.
sure.
Yeah.
I have one last question.
Uh-huh.
We understand that at ASW, there's the progression of your curriculum. You start in first grade and it continues. However, for our community, because we're a little bit more transient, being embassy, we move every now and then. There's a higher percentage of our kids in our younger grades that are struggling academically when they leave here. Their academic needs aren't being met while they're here, and some of them are requiring learning support to bring them back up to American standards.
So again, I would have you send those people to me and or send me specific statistics, because I would have statistics that would tell a different story.
Sure.
We did an exit survey of parents who have departed since 2019. We have about 220, 230 responses so far. Well less than 5% are reporting any concerns that their child had in the next experience. So so far about 230, 5 to 10 are suggesting that their kids, and we asked the question, are your kids now functioning at grade level, above grade level, or below grade level?
Do we have access to that? Is that something?
No, because we've just been gathering it, so I'll be reporting it out to the board at an upcoming meeting, probably actually Monday, if I can finish getting the statistics done. And it's an open survey, so I'm still sending reminders and getting responses back. It was only sent out in March timeframe, so I want to give plenty of time for families to get back to us. We will be doing it annually, so we will be pushing it out annually to families who have departed.
Is this the first time that you've done that survey? Have you done it in the past years?
We've done it with graduates, but not with a broader community. So this time was the first time where I restructured it, and it was based on a board goal and initiative that I've been reporting out to the board kind of at every meeting. In my goals, you'll see the parent survey of the exited families as a specific goal of our advancement.
Sure.
And so yes, it's fairly new to us. We do a lot of surveying, so it's not that we're not doing surveying, but the exit survey was primarily focused on graduates until this one.
Sure. When will that specific survey be made public?
Well, the data on it, as I just said, I'm hoping to get together this initial data for the board report on Monday. So you'll see it as part of my report to the board.
Okay.
Yeah. That'll be the first round of it. It's first time out. We're still setting baseline. But again, I checked, and out of the 221 responses, 5% were identified below grade level. The rest were at or above grade level. And the satisfaction numbers were well into the 90% level. So
Your questions on those surveys, were they for
each subject.
Sure, but were they for specific grades, or were they just for the entire from?
The way I structured the survey is they could respond separately for each child and family.
Okay, so it
has all grade levels.
So for all individual grade levels, and that's how it's broken down?
Yeah, that was the breakthrough, is I was able to structure a new survey where they could put in the kids' names, and then they could answer the questions for that child throughout the rest of the survey. Sir,
Yeah, does this data point also include military families or families from the embassy?
I did not go deep into demographics to try to identify individual subsets. I just identified grade level.
Could you add that data point in to your?
Next year, potentially, yeah.
Yeah, because I mean, for our community, especially since we move so often, every 3 or 4 years, it'd be
Right.
an interesting data point, especially since most of the American students from the embassy come here.
The only challenge with demographic questions of that nature is it tends to identify a very small identifiable group, and you try to avoid that in surveys because it reduces turnout. So I just caution, I want to review it with my team before I put it in place, but I value the suggestion.
Sure, but if it identifies 80 to 90% of our families in our community, that would be a big data point for us and the ambassador and the mission to know.
Mm-hmm. Sure. Yeah.
2 follow-on questions. One is, just as you asked for examples of statistics, it would be helpful for us to have statistics to be able to discern whether or not we believe there's an uptick.
Right.
And so I feel like that and the semblance of transparency.
So we've done a health report earlier in the year, but we could probably do another one. There's just such limited time left this year, but I can schedule it into our programming for reporting next year. Again, it's just something we monitor, so unless we see outliers, we don't necessarily bubble it up to individual reporting. We also have a new provider this year, so it's their first year, and we'll share the survey information that we gather when we ask the question about how the service is performing. And that always comes out typically in a September-October timeframe, and I share the parent survey results. So that's part of the board packet, and you can go and take a look at that as part of my report to the board. And that's been done annually for the last 7 years.
So I think we would like that.
Yeah.
For that data point.
Yeah.
Because we feel we are perceiving it as an uptick because we are seeing it in our community.
Right.
And so being told that you don't see one without
Right.
seeing the data, we like to compare that. And then the second question is, you mentioned that you monitor the ASW health.
Correct.
That's concerning as you're not a medical professional, and that's where all of the physicals of all of our children go in, which coming from the States, HIPAA and all of the European Union privacy laws, you're not a medical professional. So why do you have access to all of our children's medical records? And that's concerning to me, especially as the mother of young teenage daughters. Is that normal? Is that a normal thing that you as a man that is not a medical?
Well, let me just say, we established it as a communication channel in order to make sure that we were being responsive to parents through COVID. So it predates, the current medical provider. Your GDPR permissions would enable the administration of the school, as we always have, to have general access to the ongoing logs and information associated with our care of your children. So,
nurses' logs, but
right.
medical records that are going to the school.
So this doesn't provide, I guess in a broader sense it does, but that's not the thing that we're monitoring for. We're just monitoring for the communications, as you just asked questions about.
Right.
Right.
You have access to it.
Right, I
It's
do.
concerning to me.
Yeah. But I think as director of the school, that's legitimate access and covered under all of our policy. That's a supervisory responsibility.
I disagree with that. I think we should actually talk about the medical, that's, as a parent, that's concerning to me, that you have access to all of the physicals that we have to, as we saw in the e-notes today, all the physicals that we have to send in every year, it goes to. There's very private medical information from kids on there that you have no need to know. That's concerning.
Actually, we stripped most of that out of the form. The form's just about fitness for physical activity. It doesn't have deep insight information. That's done through separate forms that go through separate channels to the medical providers. So again, I'm an active participant, as are all of the staff and others who also help to monitor that. I actually respond to queries in the ASW Health.
You said that it goes to the other medical providers, but you look at that email address. So again, you have access to all of it.
Correct.
That's that's absurd to me. That you have access to children's medical records as a non-medical professional. You being the director means that most directors at schools don't have that access.
Actually, they do.
They don't.
Well, yeah, they do.
They should not.
I have to disagree with you. We'll certainly look into it. I take your point, and I'll certainly investigate further. But when we set the system up, it was set up specifically to make sure that we could be effective and responsive, and also that I could monitor the performance of the medical staff and their response to you. Exactly what you're asking me about is, am I monitoring and am I aware of how the medical staff is responding to your needs as through their communication channel with you? And that's just a normal responsibility to monitor the systems and the processes of the school.
That can be done without you having access to the medical records.
But again, I would caution, these are school medical records. These are not doctor medical records. These are cursory documents about general fitness and general growth and development. It's limited specifically to not delve deeply into topics that would be covered under the regulations that you're specifying. And it's very common in schools around the world for nurses' systems to have a partitioned area that is just specifically about monitoring health and well-being and does not go into the level of specific medical records. So in Power School, there's partitioned areas for that, as there is for counselors. So I don't think it rises to that level, but you've raised the question. So I'll do the investigation and I'll respond and I'll look into it. Again, established a long time ago and has been in common practice and has yielded positive results for improving the systems and helping them to work better. But I take your point. We'll look into it and we'll see if there's a need to do a greater partition of that.
Would it be possible to get the health data for injuries from the 2020 to 2023 school years and present it to the board on your next meeting? You said you have on Monday?
Yeah. I don't know if I can pull it together in that time frame. I think the data is generally available, but I have to talk to my IT folks and see what we can pull out.
Sure.
So I don't know if I can be that responsive. I'm really challenged by that because, again, what you're suggesting here is that I have to roll out data because you don't trust what I'm telling you.
No, I just, that if
I struggle with that.
If it concerns our children, I think it's something that we should be allowed to ask, especially if you already have the data, which you say that you do.
Yes.
Then you should be able to provide that. And
for current year, probably fairly
transparency's
straightforward.
sake, you should be able to let us know the amount of injuries going on at the school.
Yep, I can do that. We're gonna ask someone else.
I was gonna comment, sir. You know, I'm one of my jobs at MC is I'm a TRICARE POC, so basically our government POC, and I've seen a lot of requests come through there through the TRICARE office, and so I can say that's a valid question.
Okay.
And a concern for another parent.
Sure. Okay. Anything else? Yeah.
So just on the concussion, I'm a parent that has had, several of my kids have several concussions, and I can tell you point blank that there is no positive communication between the school and us as parents. They might send us we might get a telephone call, we might have a missed message, but given, at least American schools today with concussion protocols, there is an expectation that no matter how small concussion is, that the parent is notified positively and the school has gotten positive contact, even if it's calling back multiple times, emails. But so I definitely ask that that the concussion protocol especially is revisited, because I think it really is failing. And talking to other parents, they notice the same things, that some days they don't even have a telephone call. They have a letter in the kid's backpack that says, "Hey, here's the signs of concussion, what to look for." I mean, that's very, very serious. That because if the parents have anything in the backpack, they have no idea, and if the kid doesn't bring it forward. So it is a real thing, and I think it really should be an emphasis item.
So absolutely, area for improvement, and we can take this as advice to continue to do that. Absolutely. Sure. Yeah. Go ahead. You're welcome. Go ahead. Yeah,
I'll stand if that's okay.
yeah, please do.
So I'm actually here representing 28 families
Mhm.
and 51 students that are currently here. And so if I may be allowed to read a letter.
Certainly.
So American School of Warsaw Administration, we are parents of ASW students who have grown increasingly concerned about the teaching of gender theory and sexual identity within the classroom and school environment.
Mhm.
We are looking to partner with the school to increase awareness that the school's diverse body includes a group of children from families for whom these teachings are in conflict with their beliefs. We believe that the topics of gender and sexual identity are best taught at home, and the school's prioritization of these topics has created concern within our families. We know we are not alone within the school community and that there are other parents, at least 28 other parents, who also believe ASW has steered too far away from core academics and into ideological teaching. We believe that the school should take steps to increase its inclusivity to all families. We're asking that ASW agree to follow the Parents Act statement, which states, when it comes to sex and gender education in school, parents have a right to A, accountability from school administrators for content decisions, C, consent so they can opt their children in and out of such content, and T, transparency that allows parents to know what exactly their children are being taught. And there's a list of different things, acknowledging that the school is a large and diverse body of beliefs. We would like to work collaboratively with ASW. We're proposing ASW make these specific changes in the next 30 days. Number one, maintain a current list of sex and gender education materials on the school website by grade. And school administrators hold its teachers accountable in using only the designated materials. Provide online and at-school access for parental review of materials that include sex or gender content, including literature in classrooms and libraries. Provide 30 days advance written notice to parents before using material that includes sex or gender content. This notice should include a list of all the materials to be used, and I'll make a comment about that in 1 second. List the approver of such content so that parents know whom to contact if they have questions or concerns. Allow parents to review sex and gender education materials and decide if their children will or will not receive such instruction by opting in or out. Provide a non-punitive alternative academic plan that does not include such content for children whose parents have opted out. Schedule all club activities outside of school hours. Additionally, special interest groups or education consulting groups should not assist with classroom and assembly instruction. We believe that this greater accountability, consent, and transparency will provide a more inclusive and equitable environment for parents to make the best decisions for their children and families. I do want to make a note that we, a lot of the 4th and 5th grade parents were thrilled to get the letter about the puberty discussions this go around. I have a 5th grader, last year 4th grade, it was like pulling teeth to get the information of what was going to be taught during the puberty discussions. So we are super excited and would love to see more of that. Like, we want to give you guys kudos because I think you heard us as we started to ask questions. So we're really excited.
Well, thank you for that.
That's what we want to see more of. We loved getting the letter in anticipation. We loved that it was communicated via Seesaw, via email, via e-notes. It was awesome.
I think one of the key things we identified last year is we needed to improve primarily the communication, because that was the piece where we were clearly not meeting what we wanted to be doing. And so I thank you for that.
So
that
that is what we're talking about.
Yeah.
That was an awesome, that's what we want. And it was 4th and 5th grade. Because it's primarily when the puberty discussions are happening. But this group of parents, and this was a small group, but it's not an inconsequential number. It's 51 current students from K through 12. Every single grade is represented. And we want you to hear us on that.
Absolutely.
We'd also like to present this to the board so that it's not just something that was an idea at the town hall. And I plan to present it on behalf of the families that asked.
And as always, you're welcome there to do that in the public comment section, absolutely.
But we would like to partner with you because I know all roads lead to you on this stuff.
So we have a variety of things going on right now. Some of them you may or may not be aware of. We have a committee that's looking at the strategic area, and it has broad community and student as well and board member involvement. So that's ongoing right now. They're in the process of identifying goals for next year. There really is very little that has changed in recent years, other than the improvement in communication. We want to get better at that, and we saw that as an absolute need. So I thank you for that and validating those efforts. We need to do more. We're not done. We have to do better. We also have a health curriculum that's in review. And so we haven't really implemented anything yet. That's going to come out for additional community review when the professionals are done with structuring that. So a lot of the things that you're talking about in there are logically going to follow that in terms of communicating that out and making that part of our overall curriculum. There was a question about curriculum earlier as part of this. We do have grade level guides. They're available in the parent portal, and they do describe the curricular topics and the scope and sequence to understand what it is that we weave into our program of inquiry to make sure that we're hitting basic skills and that we're accomplishing the core standards that we've adopted, which are predominantly Common Core standards. So the alignment with US and, dare I say, global systems is there, and within that context, but it's the grade level guides that will give you the best guidepost or the simple summary of what it is that's in the curriculum for any given grade level. So you can look for those online, but they can be better, and we're still going to continue to improve those as we continue our regular cycle of curriculum review. Happy to receive in writing anything that you got with you tonight, because that'll help me digest this. I won't necessarily remember all the points, so I want to get that in writing. And please do, yeah, that always goes into our thinking. We always bring that to our table. We work with our groups on it, and we always are continuing to weave parent comment. Additionally, these topics are also topics that are fodder for the parent survey. And so in some cases, we add questions about strategic areas so that we can glean additional insight from the parent community about how we're doing in those initiatives. And we encourage that feedback through that engine as well. In terms of some of the timelines that you're suggesting there, I'm going to say right away, not likely. It's going to be something, because we're in these processes, that will be rolling out over time. But we hope to start next year, given this is our first year of recovery from COVID, and coming back together. We do see a lot of the things that we've been working on in the background as emerging next year as we start the school year. And you'll see those improvements as we continue to hone our practice.
For us, the biggest concern is on the website, the curriculum that you're referring to is very generic and core, and we're talking about.
So I'm not talking website.
No, parents portal.
Parent portal, yes. Right, okay.
Where it's not talking, it's not listing.
Well, that was the part I said about they can do better. Yeah, we'll keep getting them better. Yeah.
We're hearing reports and having our kids coming home. Very specific examples that are very concerning to us, because it's topics that are controversial, or that maybe we have something in our family that we discussed. There was a suicide discussion with very young children. How do we know that that hasn't touched a family member? And parents would like to know ahead of time before that discussion, that topic is brought up. There's a lot of things that teachers are implementing that isn't written in your curriculum. And frankly, I think a lot of us, if it were transparent, probably wouldn't have chosen this school. I'm going to be very honest. And there's a group of parents that I think would back that up. And it's 51 students that could possibly walk away, is what I'm saying, if this isn't taken seriously, because we have serious concerns about the lack of transparency.
Right. Yeah, I understand your point. That being said, we have to also balance our approach to meet the needs of the entire school community. So that's why we have to vet these through the processes that we have for assessing how much we can do without going too far. And that's the piece, is like, how can we as a school say that every topic, for example, has an option for a parent to opt out? That would be unwieldy for any school. Our current policy suggests that only for identified sensitive topics, like the communication out on the human growth and development, would we offer that option to opt out, and would we do the communication on that so the parents can make an informed choice. But when we're working on a curriculum that's basically weaving topics that are associated with our adopted standards, and when something comes up in an open conversation, that may include that, we can't always foresee that. And so what we want is for parents that become aware of something that's concerning to them, reach out to us. We're always available. You know, call me, you've got a principal, you've got a teacher, you know, it's like whoever you need to reach out to, we're here, we're available, and we're ready to talk about whatever it is that may have happened and try to address the concern. In some cases, these kinds of things come from the kids themselves, and they inspire conversations in the classroom. And teachers do their best job possible to respect and answer a child's questions within the context of what might otherwise be a lesson, and make sure that their input, you saw that in the PYPx tonight. These kids are deep inquirers, and we want them to be. And so we have this tricky balance of doing that with, again, reflecting on and suggesting to kids at every opportunity where it's appropriate. It's also something you should talk about at home, and you should talk about with your parents, and that you should have a conversation at home and family to go deeper into this. And try to do it in a way that's also developmentally appropriate. You know, younger, early childhood teachers will deal with it very differently than older students and classes where we have more mature students. So there's a range, and we have a wonderfully trained staff that knows, I think, for the most part, how to make sure that they do due diligence to this. Yeah.
As a parent to a fifth grade child, I got the document that was linked in one of your last ASW emails. Whenever I opened it, it says, talking about the health lessons, we will be integrating the lessons into the last unit of inquiry, which is where we are in place and time. Now, if we're integrating the health topics and the health discussions,
but that's current health curriculum, not new health curriculum. So this is stuff we've been doing for years.
Okay. So if
it's
we're
not new.
integrating the health lessons
always does.
into the last unit of inquiry, if you're doing that, how do we opt our children out of it if we're not wanting them to have these questions?
Well, because we don't offer an opt-out for all aspects of the health curriculum.
Sure. So how
Just
do we
for those
opt out
that-
for these type of discussions?
Well, again, what I was trying to intimate is that within the overall curriculum management, we have a procedural policy for identifying highly sensitive topics that become fodder for offering opt-out. So we don't have a general opt-out for anything that we might talk about. It's only for those areas that through the curricular process, we have legitimately identified as areas of sensitive topic that we want families to make decisions about opting their kids out or in. Okay?
Sure. So there's not regarding.
It isn't blanket across all aspects of the curriculum.
Sure.
That's what I'm trying to say.
So regarding the questions about gender and
Well, I don't know. I have to look at that and understand.
I didn't ask the question though. Can I ask the question first? So
Sorry.
regarding the gender equality or the gender questions and the sexual puberty questions, is there a set curriculum for those discussions that we can offer children out of if we so seem fit?
Yeah, we just communicated that. That's what we were talking about.
But only in the 4th and 5th grade.
Because that's the only place it is. It's up in the high school, and they get separate notification.
No,
So,
we don't.
yeah, we did.
My daughter was in the 10th grade and came home and said, we learned how to put condoms on today.
That was sent out.
No. Because I had been asked to, we're not told. I then sent a question out to the 10th grade, or 9th grade was last year.
But I reviewed the letter. So I'll have to check on that.
Right
Yeah.
This year?
Got the letter.
Zanina, right?
Yeah.
This
My
year?
condom, my soul condom.
This year.
This year, last year. This year.
Okay, so this
yeah.
year, because last year I raised that
I'm sorry.
point.
So it was, well, last year I'm not sure about, but I was supposed to have gone out. And again, I reviewed it last year as I do every year. So it should have gone out. If that didn't happen, that was a mistake, but I don't know the details of that. But as you heard, this year it did. And it was supposed to. Okay. Okay, good. We're on the right track.
A little bit,
Yeah.
so that's good.
Yeah.
That's good to hear.
Yeah. So they're right now in the current health curriculum, which again has been in place for 7 years. it has selected grade levels where that curriculum is taught.
Okay.
And the letters go out. And again, I don't know what happened last year, but it should have, and it had for every year prior to that, even during COVID. So I'm surprised that it didn't. I have a feeling that was a mistake or a miss.
I think what the other concern is
Uh-huh.
fourth and fifth grade, we're saying we're putting any of the gender theory and sexual discussion points into just the category of puberty lessons for fourth and fifth grade. So I feel
Mhm.
that we're saying, oh, it's just that. The reality though is in emotional and social learning with the different counselors, grades K or maybe, I don't know, we have pre-K here, and up, there's a very structured emotional and social learning that's introducing a lot of these topics without telling parents. That's what we're talking about.
Then we haven't identified those because of their generic nature within the counseling curriculum as contestable topics. That could change under the health curriculum review.
But so because it's contestable, you're not going to tell us?
Well, again, as I said, we have a curricular process that assesses when the highly sensitive topics are the ones we identify for opt-out. But again, I would suggest that within the counseling curriculum, it's all about inclusion and very generic, so it's not been flagged as a sensitive topic. Yeah.
It's not generic.
Yeah.
It's introducing really specific topics that parents would like to be aware of before they're taught.
Mm-hmm.
Because they're teaching, they're
Mhm.
introducing books, they're reading books to kids.
Mhm.
They're introducing, it's not like a random child has come in and said, what's pansexual? And then the teacher answers it. They're reading books about being pansexual. That's that's a teaching point. And so we are asking as.
Well, again, all I would suggest to you is nothing has changed. So we've been reading those
What's
books.
changed is we're new to the community.
I understand that.
So
I understand that.
That's what's changed.
Yeah.
More people have come in and
Yeah. So I take that as a valid point. I take it as a valid point of feedback that we can continue to consider. And again, as I've said, the health curriculum's under review, which includes some elements of the counseling curriculum. So those are things that we'll be reviewing and we'll be asking for feedback from our community on. So that's just how the process keeps going. Will those topics emerge as topics that we would highlight or otherwise identify? That's the process we're in. So again, this feedback's helpful. I want it. Please send it to me. Please make sure I get it. I have people that are also here and online, and we're recording, so we'll be able to reflect and review on this as well. I think it's just part of how schools continue to grow and develop and understand their diversity, right? Is that we have to keep asking these questions and we have to keep talking about it. We're not the only school doing this in terms of strategic areas and trying to understand this in a deeper way and trying to understand the direction. And we have a lot of people who aren't here represented who also have strong feelings in a different direction. And we have to take those into account. And we have to try to understand where's the common playing field. The thing I'm suggesting is we can only go so far in selected opt-out as a school because of the way we do business. And we do this as a collaborative conversation. We work together. So opt-outs have limited viability within the context of an overall curriculum. And we'll just have to make the best thoughtful choices we can, give parents lots of information, continue to improve the communication so that we know what we're doing, and provide the selective opt-outs where we can identify chunks that parents can have a viable choice to opt out of. The unfortunate reality, again, of a school setting where there's an opt-out is it doesn't change what happens at recess and what happens in the social setting and what happens outside of the classroom or in the hallways. So that's where we're struggling a bit with what do we identify, what do we opt out of, and how much of an opt-out is it really if they're hearing about it 30 minutes later on the playground, and possibly inaccurately. So I just, as educators, we struggle with that dichotomy of trying to craft a very separate and individual identity for a group of students within a broader context of diversity and inclusion.
For us, it's more, if it's openly on the website,
Yeah.
I think you'd end up having less opt-out because less people would come here.
Well, maybe. But again, there's another group that may not be as well represented here that is actually spurring our action in this realm and saying to us, we need to get better at this. You know, the strategic area just didn't get plucked out of thin air. It was directed towards us by both our community and a broader world community through accreditation agencies and authorizing bodies that say, you need to be good at this. You need to be diverse. You need to understand diversity. You need to teach it in your curriculum. And you need to teach an acceptance and a tolerance of all strands of diversity. So as a school, if we're going to be a leading edge international school, we have to attend to this. And to keep in mind, a lot of our work to date has all been primarily with us as a staff learning more about this and trying to understand it more deeply before we roll it out significantly to kids. I understand we have a new community that is seeing it through a different lens, but I have to reiterate, what we're doing right now is not significantly different than what we did 3 years ago or 4 years ago. That we've always had, ASW has always been, it's in our core values, a diverse and accepting community for a wide range of differences across all dimensions. So it's always been present. But we did see evidence of underlying bullying and the negative outgrowth of not really going deeper on this and understanding that diversity, and we're making inroads there. And that's been part of advisory and some of the other things that we've done is to try to really address those underlying things where we want kids to absolutely feel safe and valued and honored in a school setting. That's our goal, ultimately, at the end of the day. We need you. We need you to keep giving us feedback. We need your input. We need all of the insights that you glean from your daily experiences. And we'll continue to try to weave that into our practices and understanding how we can get better at meeting the needs of all of our kids. That's our goal. Okay? Okay for now? Okay? I'll keep working at it. We're never done. We're a school that's always constantly learning and trying to do better. So we'll keep working at it. And I'm not taking away from this that I solved any problems, but that I've got things that we need to look deeper at. So I appreciate that. Okay? All right. Audience, you've watched this all happen. So you're online. Thank you very much for joining us tonight. Thank you to the audience here. Thank you to the if you get a chance, thank you to the teachers and the kids for a wonderful PYPx exhibition. It really was a fabulous night tonight. It was so good to have the kids here and be able to talk to them as well and see what the fruition of their learning really looks like. So that's it for me tonight on Town Hall, live, hybrid, and everything else. Please join us if you'd like for the board meeting on Monday night. Information on that, as usual, will come out on Friday so that you can prepare for that. And there is, as always, a public comment section for you to join us as well. With that, I will take us out and wish you a pleasant evening.